Hello, welcome into another update here on the tropics from Caden's Weather Center here on July 29th, 2024. Here it is around 9 a.m. Right now, paying attention to still that area of interest out here in the mid-Atlantic. We're going to keep an eye out on this definitely for the next couple of days, as we could be seeing a potentially tropical storm here, probably maybe by the end of this week. So once it gets into this area, I just want to say that really quickly here. As it gets into this area, that is where we are going to start to see that favorable environment somewhat, try to get it to develop here, but as of right now it's too far out and it's definitely not going to form until the best chances of forming will be in this region right here. The opportunity is not happening right now due to the unfavorable environment, the wind shear, and as well as the dry air that is trying to kind of just choke it off. So if it makes it over here, then that's where the best possibility for development can be. Over here for the next 2 days, we see a area of interest right here. There's our area of interest. Not looking too impressive here on the satellite. We'll take a look at the satellite here in a little bit. 0% chance still in the next 2 days. The question is when does this exactly form? When it gets over here, when did the chances start going up for the next 48 hours though? We'll have to definitely keep an eye out on that. We have another tropical wave just over here, but nothing else has been marked by the National Hurricane Center. 50% chance for the 5-day or the 7-day development chance, so it's starting to go up and get up there. So could we see a 60-70% chance later on this evening? We possibly could, but we'll definitely have to take a look at what we are anticipating with the models and what is the probabilities of this storm forming. So if we start to head in here to the models right here, so this is the European probability. We've been looking at this for the past couple of days here, keeping an eye out on this area right here for the next 24 to 72 hours. So from the next day to 3 days, we're obviously seeing some pretty good chances of a tropical depression forming. Heading into 48 to 96 hours, 120 hours out, we could possibly be seeing a tropical depression in this region. The question I will say is, where does it go after this? We have pretty good model support saying it's going to go somewhere in this circle right here, but the question is, does it get pulled up to the north, or does it go pulled up into Florida and then get pulled up to the north? We have a lot of possibilities that we're definitely going to be keeping an eye out on, because not every model is agreeing with each other. So 120 to 168 hours out, that's when we start to see the percentages go down, but definitely could be seeing something form and go up over here to the northeast after that turn. But the question is, if it does, let's say the European model is right and it does go up here, what will the impacts bring over here to the Carolinas and parts of the northeast, depending on how close it does get? And if we take a look, 144, 168 hours out, 192 starts to move off into the North Atlantic, not being too much of an issue for a lot of people here. But definitely, I would say if you live in Florida here, you guys need to also be paying attention, as well as the Carolinas. You guys, a lot could change in the next 24 hours. We just don't exactly know. It's not a invest yet. So since it's not an invest, we don't have model support as much. We don't have planes going out. So it's a little bit of an interesting situation that we're keeping an eye out on. So definitely want to keep an eye out on some of these models though, because we could be seeing a completely different stuff change over the next, couple of hours, the couple of, model changes. We could definitely see something change, but we'll have to keep an eye out on that. But today, as you can see, July 29th, we've been looking at this for the past couple of days here of the European ensembles. What are we expecting now from the European ensembles? Well, we go into 102 hours out. That's when we start to see a little bit of more, we see a little bit more of that model development right in this region right here. Obviously not very strong by the European model. Head into 120 hours. That's when we start to see a little bit pull to the north here. In around 6 days, we could be seeing something starting to form here. So we take a look at this area right here. That's where those models out, but still look how spread out these models are. The models are very, very spread out still in this region, and we want to keep an eye out on that, because that is what's going to limit our confidence on where it could possibly go. This could pull up all the way over here. We could get closer to the United States. Very big question here. But then we head into 9 days. Look at that. Big change. So once it gets off over here, it's going to race off to the northeast. But possible strong storm, according to the Euro, once it gets over here into parts of the North Atlantic off of the east coast of the United States here. Not as many models going into Florida at this time. We're still watching for any potential, bounce backs. As we can clearly see, though, yesterday morning didn't have as much model support. I didn't have as much model support. But then we head into the 12Z from yesterday, a little bit more bump to the west here, closer to the United States. You can see the Carolinas kind of in there. And then this morning, more bump to the east. So kind of a little bit more back and forth, but it all depends on that high pressure that is over Bermuda. We want to keep an eye out on that because that is going to play a big factor on where the storm could possibly go, because not every model is agreeing with the European model. So let's take a look here at the GFS ensembles right now. Very different than the European ensembles. And we can take a look at this. Definitely August 3rd. Right here's your date. 126 hours out. We want to keep an eye out on this region right here still for that tropical development. We could be seeing a potentially big storm, or not too big of a storm according to the GFS. The European saying a little bit more of a stronger system here, but definitely something to be paying attention to as it continues to as we continue to get these updates in. Look at this, a pull up to the north here according to the GFS, but we still see some go into Florida. So I would say Florida definitely needs to keep an eye out on this storm, that is going to possibly form here in the future. Has that potential of forming into a tropical storm, tropical depression. We will have to see. The GFS ensemble is not saying as strong of a system, but it's very, very, very more spread out. You can clearly look at this, not even exactly knowing where that center will be. And then we continue to watch this very closely. Really just not much is going on according to the GFS. We can see a lot more weaker systems just get pulled up to the north here, but so spread out and unorganized, we just don't know what to believe right now. But let's take a look at these water temperatures though. The water temperatures, obviously, the hotter, the best for those tropical systems here. We can clearly see once it gets into this region right here, reaching up to 29, 28 degrees Celsius, which is going to be very, very warm for this. But if it pulls up to the north here, it could go through the Bahamas water and 30 degrees Celsius there. If it goes into Florida, that's when it gets really into the hot waters, possibly 31, 32 degrees Celsius, because all the coast here of Florida really has gotten some really hot water. So that's extra fuel for these hurricanes to possibly form here, especially since we're heading into August. We could be definitely seeing something that we want to keep an eye out on very closely, because this hurricane season, we still have around 90% left. So a lot could form in the next couple of weeks. We could be seeing some possible development here, and the question is, does it hit any part of the United States? But definitely, if the storm was definitely to hit near Florida, there could be a little bit of rapid intensification potential around there due to the water temps, but that also depends on the wind shear, everything else as well. So let's take a look here at the satellite though. So this is the satellite that we're keeping an eye out on right now. If we take a look at the storm, there is your tropical system right here that we're paying attention to. Very, very small. You kind of can see a little bit of a spin actually right in there. There's that spin. So trying to, sometimes it, doesn't have the most closed, center, so we don't exactly know where it is, and that's why some of the models have a lot of issues here. But you kind of can see it's going to push off over here to the northwest, heading into where there's pretty much no clouds, but heading into a lot of that dry air right now. It's also kind of dealing with some of that dry air right now. So it's a very, very small system here, very small here, but want to keep an eye out on it if it gets any stronger as it continues to push off to the northwest. So it is not very, very organized, I would say, right now, but definitely is very small, and definitely something we need to keep an eye out on, especially as we go on throughout the next couple of days. And then if we take a look here at the water vapor, you can see there's that storm right there. We have lots of dry air in the front of it, and as you can kind of see, there's that dry air. So the question is does the dry air let out a little bit and kind of give it a little bit of a chance to develop over here? That's kind of what the National Hurricane Center is thinking. This is the area where it could possibly develop. We'll definitely have to keep an eye out on the dry air as well. There's a lot of moist air over here in this region right here of the Atlantic, but a lot of the dry air is more up to the north here. So this definitely is battling a lot of the dry air, which could definitely limit some development. So let's take a look here at some of the model runs. We want to keep an eye out on these model runs because this is where it gets really interesting here on the model runs. This is what we really pay attention to very closely. Taking a look here at the 00Zs. We're just going to go through what came out this morning here. Taking a look at the GFS. There's our system right there. 66 hours out according to the GFS. Very long, very long, broad area here of just a bunch of rain, it seems. And then we go over here back to this. We continue to watch it. Potentially something over here over the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Could be definitely seeing something there. Then, whoopsies, and then we go off here. It continues to push off. But the question is with the GFS, it doesn't show much development. I would say if we take a look here, though, on where it goes, we take a look. There's that. If we follow it, it heads into the Gulf of Mexico. Heads right into the Gulf of Mexico and kind of just gets pulled up to the north. So a little bit to be paying attention to. If we head to the 6Z, that's where we kind of see kind of the same type of situation here. Oh, there it is. You can see it right there. Gets pulled up a little bit into the north here. Even though it is not a closed and well-defined system here, we kind of can still see on where it exactly is. We can see a little bit of that spin over here up to the north here in the Florida Panhandle. So definitely want to keep an eye out on that because we could see a lot of tropical moisture head into Florida. So even if it doesn't form, we're still going to see some rain, according to the GFS, come into Florida. So definitely I would say, we have a lot more. We have, the Euro model is off to the east. The GFS is barely saying anything's going to form and is off to the west here. And then we'll take a look at the CMC and the Icon model just to add those in there as well. So taking a look here at the European model, though, like if we take a look here at the European model, we can clearly see there it is. There's that the area of spin right in this region right here. The question is, where does it go? Well, according to this model, it's going to pull up to the north here from this morning here, and we can clearly see, look at that. Definitely paying attention to it. So we could see 1,011 millibars for this tropical system before it gets pulled up to the north. This could be right over the Bahamas, which would cause a lot of heavy rainfall around the Bahamas. And then we continue to watch this storm as it continues to push off to the north. So a little bit of a recurve here before before even reaching Florida, but it doesn't keep it a very strong storm. So we could have a possible low tropical storm here, according to the European model. Not a very, very strong system that we could be expecting from this, but take a look at that on how close the European model brings it into North Carolina, the Outer Banks here. That could be something to pay attention to as it heads off to the northeast after that. But a little bit of that rainfall could definitely pick up. If the European model is right, North Carolina and parts of the northeast could really get a lot of rainfall from this system. Let's take a look at the CMC model here. The CMC model was actually one of the best for Hurricane Beryl. Actually got it pretty on point on where the storm was going. Taking a look here at the CMC, though, this CMC has been pretty consistent here. If you're curious on where the storm is, this one keeps it a little bit more off to the south here. So instead of where the European and the GFS kind of keep it off to the north, this one's more to the south here. Obviously not very organized due to it going over Cuba, but that's going to limit the development, which would be great news. But the question is, where does it go after that? According to the CMC, you can start to see 1,007 millibars right off the west coast of Florida here. Right off the west coast of Florida here, 1,007 millibars could be potentially up. Then we see 1,006, 1,004. So the CMC is kind of saying maybe a low tropical storm as well, as that continues to push over here into the Florida type bend area, which is kind of hugging the west coast of Florida, which we've been seeing for the past actual couple frames, or by the kind of the past couple of days here. But the CMC yesterday was a little bit more of a westward push and a little bit stronger of a system heading into the Florida Panhandle. Yesterday morning was kind of the same thing here, but now it seems like actually it's bumped a little bit more off to the east here, kind of following what the Icon is doing. So, even though this isn't the European or the GFS model that we don't usually pay attention to the CMC, make sure to keep an eye out on it, because this could be one of the models that is correct. It did really good on Beryl, so we could see another storm that it could do very well on. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye out on that. But after that, it heads through Georgia, through South Carolina, and then going into North Carolina, and then we'll race off probably to the northeast as well. So a little bit to be paying attention to with the CMC model as well, because we could be seeing more of a westward track here heading into western Florida. Let's take a look at the Icon model. We can clearly see there's our area of interest right here, right over the Dominican Republic, over Haiti. Once again, this keeps it more to the south here. This keeps it a little bit more to the south than the European and the GFS model. So it all depends on how strong that high pressure is. We can currently see that there's a high pressure you can see there's kind of a high pressure right over here. There's that big high pressure over here. Which one will be stronger here? That's kind of guiding it. That's why it's not going to go any more west or anything, because there's another high pressure off to the west. So want to keep an eye out on that as well. But taking a look here at the Icon model, does bring it up through the west coast of Florida. Hugs the west coast of Florida here, we can clearly see, but 1,003 millibars off the storm here and brings it into the Florida Bend as a possible high-end tropical storm here of 999 millibars here, could bring it off eventually as well to the northeast here. So a little bit something to be paying attention to, because the Icon and the CMC are bringing it a little bit more off to the south here, bringing it over Cuba. The GFS kind of just, we have the Icon, CMC kind of bringing it over Cuba. The GFS kind of just not saying it's going to form. And then the European model saying completely missing these islands and getting pulled off to the north. So really spread out here still. We do not exactly know where it's going to go. The question is when does the National Hurricane Center let it be an invest? When do they mark it as an invest? Because that would play a big factor on what we know. And that would really help us understand exactly where it could possibly go. So we're waiting for the National Hurricane Center to put it out as an invest. Probably won't see an invest maybe for the next day or two. Definitely as it gets closer to its development area, we'll have to keep an eye out on that. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure to follow my X page. It'll be down in the description for the latest updates here on the tropics and any severe weather around the United States here. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.